Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something you probably don't think about when you hear AI. The hidden, high-stakes war over energy. It's a story that connects a brand new law, a global power struggle, and what might just be the single most important resource for the future of all technology. But let's just start with a quick question to set the stage. What do you think uses more electricity every year than the entire country of Ireland? You know, a nation with over 5 million people. Is it a massive industry? Maybe a whole transportation network? Believe it or not, the answer is a single frontier AI model. Yeah, you heard that right, just one of them. And that incredible fact really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today, the absolutely massive and mostly invisible energy price tag of the AI revolution. So, for most of the last century, oil was the resource. It drew the maps of global power. But the core argument of the analysis we're looking at today is that in the age of AI, that title has a new owner: electricity. And when you look at the numbers, you really start to get it. A single top-tier AI model can drink up to 50 terawatt hours. I mean, that's way more than Ireland. By 2030, we're talking about global data centers needing as much power as Japan. And look ahead to 2035, just the US AI sector could be demanding 10 to 15% of the entire US power grid. This isn't a small problem anymore, it's a huge strategic issue. So, what happens when the world's most important new technology gets that thirsty for power? Well, it kicks off a whole new kind of geopolitical competition. The old game was about being a petrostate, controlling the oil. The new game is about becoming an electrostate, controlling how electricity gets made. And this brings us to this really key idea from the analysis, the electrostate. This isn't about having oil in the ground. It's about owning the factories that build solar panels, the plants that process battery materials, the whole supply chain. It's power that comes from industrial scale, not from digging stuff up. And this really sets up two completely different playbooks. The source material frames the U.S. strategy as that of a classic petrostate, leveraging its huge fossil fuel resources to optimize the system we already have. But China is playing a different game entirely. It's trying to architect the future by becoming the world's undisputed electrostate. The scale of this is just wow. Look at solar panels, pretty much the foundation of cheap, clean power. Right now, China controls over 80% of every single part of the manufacturing process. From the raw materials to the finished product, it's all them. And it's the exact same story with lithium-ion batteries, which you need for electric cars and for storing energy on the grid. Again, China's market share is just hovering at a dominant 80%. It's a pattern. Now, this isn't an accident. The analysis calls this strategy weaponized deflation. The idea is you build way more factory capacity than anyone actually needs. Then you flood the market with cheap products. Solar panel prices dropped 42% in 2023 alone. This makes it basically impossible for any other country to even think about building its own competing industry. You just can't compete with those prices. Okay, so in the middle of this huge strategic competition, the source material we're covering introduces a major and, let's say, pretty dramatic plot twist in U.S. policy. So the analysis we're digging into here presents a really interesting hypothetical scenario. It imagines that on July 4th, 2025, a piece of legislation it calls the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA for short, gets passed. And this bill, in the scenario, would totally flip America's current energy strategy on its head. Under this hypothetical law, the government would essentially undo many of the big clean energy incentives we have now. We're talking about getting rid of the IRA tax credits, ending the brakes for buying EVs, and putting solar on your roof, while at the same time making it easier to produce more fossil fuels. So, according to this analysis, making such a sharp turn in policy would create something called the sovereignty paradox. And it's a real strategic trap for America's future in technology. It basically boils everything down to one incredibly tough choice. What do you prioritize? Do you go for speed, or do you go for sovereignty? And here's the dilemma in a nutshell. The US could build out its new energy grid super fast and cheap by just buying all the Chinese hardware. That's the path of speed. But that makes you incredibly dependent on a strategic rival. The other path, sovereignty, is to build your own secure supply chain here at home. But that's going to be way slower and a lot more expensive. And the analysis makes a crucial point. China doesn't have to make this choice. It gets to have both speed and sovereignty. And this is where it all comes full circle, right back to the race for AI. Because if electricity really is the new oil, then whoever has the cheapest, most secure, and most abundant supply of it is probably going to win the future of artificial intelligence. The analysis argues China is building what it calls a sovereign AI stack, and it's doing it step by step. It starts with a foundation of sovereign energy, power from hardware they make themselves. That power runs their sovereign infrastructure, data centers they build and control. Inside those data centers, they're putting their own sovereign hardware, their own chips, which they then use to train their own sovereign AI models. It's a completely closed loop from the electron all the way up to the algorithm. So the big takeaway from the analysis is this. For all of its incredible software and innovation, the US AI industry is building its future on a physical foundation, the very stuff that makes electricity, that is largely controlled by its main global competitor. And that leaves us with one final, really provocative thought to chew on. In this new era, can you truly have AI sovereignty if you don't first have energy sovereignty?